Okay, so project number 2, this is gorgeous. I would absolutely send this to my little granddaughter. She'd love it. And it would be one of those that she'd keep because it's got shaker in it. Now, I'm going to let you into a little secret. I'm not good at glitter. I don't mind the feel of it, but it gets everywhere. So this could be fun, just watching me use glitter in itself. Now, this is quite a really clever way that they've done this. So I'm going to go through it step by step, and we're going to do the die cutting and everything for this. So let's just start with our card blank, first of all. So we've got a card blank that is, let's have a look, 19 centimetres square. Seems to be a popular size. And then we've got a piece of this lovely soft, almost like a silver, really soft grey cardstock. So I'm going to start just by sticking that onto here. Okay. And then we know we've got the base of it, that bit done, and we can pop that to one side. So especially if you're using wet glue, do this bit first and then it's got time to dry. Always make sure that you open your card the right way around, because I've done that a few times too. And then I'm going to position this. So when I'm hovering, I've got my fingers underneath like this, and I've got my other fingers underneath like that, and I'm hovering over the top, and I'm checking the top edge and then the left and the right. And as long as they're even, the bottom will then fit perfectly, okay? Providing you've cut your card straight in the first place, of course. Now then, the next thing that we're going to do is we're taking this piece of paper that's going to go on here, and it's going to go on, let's put it on. See, it's got musical notes on, and it's really difficult with musical notes because sometimes the musical notes look like they're upside down, but they're actually the right way around. So if there's any kind of font on it, so if there's any words on it, look at the words rather than the notes. And that's something that I've learned over the years, because notes can be upside, it looks wrong, but it's actually right. It's very confusing. So we're going to cut our aperture into this first of all. All right, so the dies that we're going to use, and I've had to write myself a list of dies because I won't remember them all, is Sending Holiday Tidings, which is this lovely little girl here, and you get 2 dies. So you get the little girl here, and it gives you this beautiful little pin dot edge, and that will give you this. So it will cut into your cardstock, which I think is lovely, because you could do a whole shaker with that if you wanted to. As long as you cut it neatly, you could use that as a card blank. And then you've also got the outside edge, which will then cut that out. All right, so we're going to do that bit in a minute. But what's really clever is they've cut in, and we're going to have to do this in 2 passes. So they've used this holiday crescent, and they've used the outside edge of the Sending Christmas Tidings. So they've cut this one first, and they've put it a little bit further over to the right hand side, because then they've cut this so that the wreath then slots back in. So when you actually cut I'll bring this in and show you, when you cut the charisma, if I just lift this up slightly, you'll be able to see there, it's cut into the cardstock, so it slots back in. Now, it's up to you. You could just cut an aperture and stick that over the top. If that's easier, it's up to you, because you don't really, because of the thickness of the charisma, it doesn't really matter which way around you do it, but I'm just going to show you how you do it this way so that you've got a video of it. So I'm going to just put that to one side, and I'm going to just position this circle on here. Always use a low tack tape, because it's just not worth risking the dies moving, because then you've got to print off another piece of paper, which I know isn't much of a hardship, but when you're on a roll, you don't really want to stop, do you? So a little bit at the top and a little bit at the bottom. I tell you, when I retire, I'm going to reinvent sticky tape. Sticky tape and children's car seats, because they're both a nightmare. I have a list. I say when I retire. I'll probably never retire because I love my job too much, but that's the 2 things in life that need redoing. So I'm going to pop that on there, and we're going to run this through our Pro Cut. Okay, so 3mm plate on the bottom, then your magnetic sheet, your die face down, and then your 5mm plate. And the 5mm plate is the one that you cut into with the Pro Cut, because that gives you, it's denser, so it stops the plates from warping. It's very clever. And I have to say, I have this on my desk now, and it's absolutely brilliant. Doesn't matter what colour it is, I just love it as a machine. Right, so let's take that out. and then very carefully just remove that tape, okay? So you just want to go in, don't just rip it off, be gentle. One, because you can then reuse the tape, and two, you don't want it to tear the paper. That's why you need to get a really good low tack tape. Okay, pop that on there. And if you've got any residue, just get an eraser. You can actually get an adhesive eraser, and then you can just get rid of any excess sticky. And just peel this out nice and gently. Just take your time, there's no rush. And then that die can go over there for later on. Right, so we've now got our aperture. So now what we're going to do is take our die and we're going to position it over the edge of here. So I still need to have some space here to be able to put my foam tape behind to create the shaker. So I'm thinking about that. I'm giving myself enough space round here as well. And then I'm going to use this tape again. And I'm going to position that in there. Because my tape's die cut, I'm just going to put an extra piece on because I'd rather put more on and know that it's secure than risk it. Okay, this is supposed to tear this tape, but I always seem to end up cutting it. Right, so again, remember to turn it over, otherwise you'll end up with a sheet that looks like this. I'd love to know how many times you've made a fridge magnet, because I've done it several times. And then you've got this, of course, for another project as well, which will be lovely. So you could actually take this and position that over there. That would work really, really well. So same image, you obviously get two on a sheet because it's been cut off. Just make sure that you cut it in half with a trimmer rather than hacking at it with a pair of scissors. And then you've got another piece to go behind there. So we don't waste anything. And I love doing that bit. I love taking something and seeing how many different things you can get out of it. And it's no different when you die cutting, you know, all the little waste bits that are left over at the end of the day, challenge yourself to make something out of them because it makes you really creative. Right, let's get rid of all this tape malarkey going on. And let's get this off here. Now we've got the glittery bit to come, which is always interesting. You could use, you know, faux snow or sequins instead if you really don't like glitter. It's up to you. So now you can see we've got that circle and we've got that wreath in there. And we've also got this bit. Now I'm going to see if there's anything that we can do with this bit just while we're here, because we can. So you've got like this fraction of the crescent here, which actually you could pop behind there, and then you could have that over the top because it's the same colour of paper. You could get away with that. If you put like some little flowers or little snowflakes around there, you could use that bit too. So just get creative. That's what we like. So we've now got that, so we can get rid of our plates and put those out of the way. And then we've got this bit. So the next thing that we need to do is bring in our card blank, and we're going to stick our acetate to the back of this. Like that. So we're going to stick that onto the back of there, and then we're going to put our foam tape on, and that will create our shaker. All right, so let's do this first. Now I'm going to use red liner tape for this because this is plastic. It's much easier, and I'm also going to work on top of this so I can see it a little bit better against my glass mat. And I'm going to use red liner tape because a wet glue, just unless you use the all stick from Pinflair, which is made to work with plastic, although you can use it for everything else, you want to make sure, like a bookbinding glue, you know, wet PVA can't penetrate acetate because it's plastic, so there's no fibres for it to sink into, so it's going to take ages to dry. So red liner tape is easier for this. And you know, if I lifted my tool bag up now, I've probably got 8 or 9 different adhesives in there for different jobs, because if you've got the right tool for the right job, it just makes it easier and more pleasurable. which is why we craft in the first place, isn't it? We don't craft to get stressed, craft because we enjoy it. Right, let me just get hold of this and pop that on there, and I'm going right the way across like that. Okay, now let's get my tweezers on this. This is the bit with the red liner tape that drives me bonkers because it's static and it wants to stick to you. Right, let's get that bit off. Apparently somebody emailed in and said if you put kitchen roll underneath it, it doesn't stick to you. And apparently it works. So you might want to try that as well. Actually, that wasn't too bad. Right, so let's put this onto the back of here now. And I'm making sure that you can't see the glue. Okay, so I'm just lining it up to the edge there and the edge there. You're going to see a little bit, but that's not too bad, I don't think. So if you've got a sticky there, get your anti-static bag and dust over it. Okay, because unless you're using a really fine red liner tape, you're going to get a little bit of glue there. That's going to get covered up anyway. So we've now got, oh, not sticky anymore. Oh, love that. Right, so the next bit we need to do is put foam tape around here. And I'm going to be careful where I put the foam tape because again, I don't want to see it. So, but we have to have a continual line. So using foam on a roll for this is much better because you can bend it. Can you see as I'm going along, I'm pressing it down and then I'm just twisting the foam like this, whereas using little foam squares would take forever. And because we're putting glitter in it, glitter's going to get everywhere. So we want something that's going to be really a continual line all the way around like that. And then we can always put a little bit extra. I'm going to continue that tape. So if you look there, it started on an angle and I'm carrying that end bit, the final bit, across there. So we've got that complete piece. So that's then going to stick on there and our glitter is going to go inside that bit. But just to make sure that we're all nice and neat and tidy, I'm also going to put some in the corners here because I don't want the corners to dip. You want it to stay nice and flat. So I know you're using a little bit more than normal, but it's purposeful. And there's nothing worse than making a card and not being happy with the end result. For the sake of a bit of foam tape, as my granddad used to say, if you're going to do a job, it's worth doing it well. Right, so let's bring it back in our card like this, and then we're going to position that onto there like that. Okay, now let me just have a look at the original card. Yeah, so we've got another piece of paper here, and this is going to go onto here first to give you the background, and then that is going to go on top of that. We're not going to worry about this bit because we can cover this bit of glue over because we've got another little section to go on yet. Okay, so I'm going to stick this flat. I'm bracing myself with the glitter. And the reason I don't like glitter is because I worked for years and years and years. I hand painted garments that got sold into wholesalers across the country. And every one of them had glitter on. And every morning I used to go up into the attic, which didn't have a window in it, by the way, so there was no ventilation, and de-glitter 100 garments. So you can imagine I was constantly covered in it. And now it makes me go a bit funny. But we have to do it because we're crafters. Right, so we're going to pop this onto here. So glitter. Now, the other tip I would give you is always anti-static bag your acetate before you take the backing off. All right, because if you take the backing off, the powder is going to go onto the sticky tape and stop it getting sticky, as you saw before. So do that, and it will also, because that's plastic and that's plastic, because glitter is just plastic, it's going to want to stick to itself, and you'll always get some of it, but let's just minimise that if we can. I've got to find out how to get in the bag. Right, so This is the bit where I sit back a bit. And just to make it easier, I'm going to cut that bit off the bag, because otherwise half of it's going to stick down there. Right, so let's put this into the middle like that. Okay, I'm going to move that up, and I'm going to bring this in, and we're going to take the foam tape off now. Okay, so I'm just thinking as I'm doing this, maybe I don't need to take all the foam off around the middle, but then it might not stick flat, so I'm going to do it anyway. This is how my brain works. I'm constantly in my brain when I'm crafting, talking to myself, well, what if I did that? What if I did that? Would that work if it did that? Sometimes my husband's like, have you got off the phone yet? I'm like, I haven't been on the phone. So, well, who have you been talking to for the last 3 hours? I'm like, me. Get the right answer that way, don't I? Right, so now I am again hovering and checking that I've got that in the right position, like that. And then I'm going to press that down. Now, this is the bit where we've got to just start in the middle and push out, okay? Because it will want to naturally, because you've put tape on paper, it's going to want to pull it. It's going to want to do that to it to create that little mound, if you like. So if you start in the middle, like you do when you're wallpapering, start in the middle and work out, that will work better. And then we've got our glitter in place like that, okay? So the next thing we're going to do is bring back in our plates, and we're going to cut this image out of here. So they've already used this die like that in the middle to cut around the little girl like that. And now what we're going to do is cut that bit out, so it's going to nest back in to the front of your card. All right, so I'm just going to position this, and I'm looking at the outside edge to make sure. Now here it gets very, very pale, so look at your die at the top, because if you line it up at the top, it's got to line up at the bottom. Okay, so I'm just making sure that it's even all the way around, and I'm also looking at this bit here. So I'm looking at the distance between the inside of that die and the edge of that cut, and making sure that that's even too. Okay, and then we'll go in with our tape again. And it's just little things like this that, you know, you might not even think about, and then somebody just suggests it to you and you think, oh, do you know what, why did I not think of that? I do that all the time, and it just comes with experience. And it's funny, you know, I mean, I've been in this industry for, gosh, how long now? 34 years. And I still watch every show that Stephanie does, because she's had different experiences in the craft industry and done different things. So you learn from people all the time. And I love that. It's nothing better than learning something new, even if it's just a little tip, like anti-static bagging your acetate, just the little things that make it easier. It's just good fun, I think. Right, let's get this. So let's very carefully now peel this off the tape. All right, and we've got this now, this lovely image with that little girl, and you've got that beautiful tiny scallop edge around her. Okay, so put that to one side and bring back our card front. So what we're going to do is position this, and we're going to pop her back in there, and she's then going to cover over that bit of tape. Now make sure that she's stood upright like that. Okay, now I'm going to have to use wet glue on there for this, but just be aware that it's going to take a little bit longer to dry on plastic. Okay, so you need very, very little glue. There's no point putting too much on because it has nowhere to go. All right, so just a little bit of glue around that edge, and that is going to then sit, making sure my little girl is positioned correctly, so she's not leaning over or going for a fall. And then I'm going to bring back in this, and then this will slot directly back in to there like that. Okay, and then we build that bit up. Right, so let's put this bit in. Now I'm going to use Pinfly glue gel for this, because I've got a bigger surface area, and it will just slot back in. So I'm starting at the bottom and just working my way around, looking at the side now, making sure all those pieces slot back in. And sometimes it can be a fraction of a millimetre off. This one's actually pretty good, but depending on the weight of paper that you've printed that on and that on, sometimes a die will push the edges back further. It depends on the fibres inside the card. So just, you know, work out what works for you. And then we've got another one that could go over the top of there, or we could have another one that comes in here if you wanted to, that covers over so it does look like you're peeping through. So you've got one on either side. I quite like that idea, so I think I'm going to do that on this one, just because I can. That's my favourite thing, that. Especially when I'm in the car with my husband. He's like, why are you driving this way? I'm like, because I can. So I'm then going to position her under there like that. So we've got the little bird at the bottom, and we've got some extra little elements that we can cover over that bit there. So I'm going to do that. I like doing this. It's just good fun. So that's going to pop under there like that. And I'm going to bring her hat over the top of the wreath, so it gives her a little bit more depth and dimension. And then down here where we've got this snow bit here, because that looks a bit odd, we're going to take some of our little decoupage pieces and add these in to here, like this. So let's see if that works perfectly there. Look at that, covers over that snow, looks like she stood there, meant to be, not lined up with the piece underneath, but you would never know. And that just extends that round there, and then just a few of these here and there. And I'm actually just going to go and pop them where I think they work rather than where they are on the charisma, because then you're changing it up a bit, and that's always a good thing. And then I've got another one here that I could just pop on this side. Oh, a bit more pin flare. So just pull the syringe out. Yours will probably come with a key, and you put the key on the bottom of your tube, and just 2 turns of the key will fill it up. But I can't find my key. And then just press at the top so you get like this little dome, and then put the lid on, and that'll stop it drying out. And then push that back in. You don't want to overfill the syringe, because then it's awkward to hold. I'm going to pop that one just there like that, and maybe another little one. Let's have a look. We've got a few berries up here just to add a little bit of height there, like so. Okay, and then if I just go back to the, so you've got all these bits left over, look, so that's for another project. So cut them all out and then keep them in your little cello bags, nice and safe, because there'll be times where you just think, oh, I just need a little bit more up there, or I just need a little bit more over here. I'm just going to move that round slightly like that, so it almost meets at the bottom. And that's the joy as well of using glue gel. You can do that, because I think that looks a bit better. And then just adjust her over there. Sentiment I would probably put at the top there, Christmas cheer. And then if I bring this one in, you've got the original one there like that, and then the other one there like that. And it's up to you which you prefer, or do your own thing, but having the sentiment there then will then finish off that project, and it will bring the white from the glitter down here back up there. So it's worth doing that little bit and just play around and try different compositions. Right, go on to the next one.